Earlier this year, China executed 4 Canadian nationals. China executed 4 Canadian nationals. They were convicted of drug-related crimes.
We strongly condemn the execution.
Canada's foreign minister confirmed today 4 Canadians were executed in China earlier this year.
Robert Schellenberg has been on death row in China for several years, but federal officials say the former Abbotsford resident was not among 4 Canadians executed there.
Police have asked us not to give any details, and they want us to make sure ultimately that we are protecting their privacy.
And Minister Jolie was adamant that she preserve their privacy. Their executions, as you can expect, further complicate a really complex geopolitical landscape.
China is a country governed by the rule of law and treats defendants of all nationalities equally. The Canadian side should respect the spirit of the rule of law and stop interfering in China's.
In a statement, Global Affairs said Canada strongly condemns China's use of the death penalty and insisted Canada repeatedly called for clemency for these individuals at the senior-most levels.
Canada versus China, the executions that shocked the world. Imagine waking up to the news that 4 of your fellow citizens were just executed in a foreign country. No public warning, no televised trial, just silence, followed by a final statement from Beijing. These were Canadians executed in China, despite direct intervention from Canada's top diplomats and even the former Prime Minister. What kind of message is China sending? And what does this tell us about the state of global diplomacy in 2025? This story isn't just shocking, it could change the way the West deals with China forever. Let's break it down. China has officially confirmed the execution of 4 Canadian citizens, all convicted of serious drug-related offenses. The Canadian government says they did everything they could to stop it. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly condemned the executions as shocking and inhumane, but Beijing stood firm. What makes this case even more complex? The 4 individuals weren't just Canadian, they also held Chinese citizenship, and that's a detail that changed everything. Facts. China does not recognize dual citizenship. So even though Canada tried to intervene, China considered these 4 as Chinese citizens under Chinese law. China claims the trials were fair and the evidence was overwhelming. Canada, like most Western nations, opposes the death penalty. But China? It applies it harshly, especially for drug crimes. Despite repeated pleas for clemency, some behind closed doors, some made public, China didn't bend, not once. Map shows trade and political ties between the 2 countries, slowly cracking apart. And this wasn't just a matter of law and order. It was a clear signal about who's in control and how far China is willing to go to assert that control. To truly understand the weight of this moment, we need to go back to 2018. That's when Canada arrested Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou at the request of the United States, a move that triggered one of the worst diplomatic standoffs in Canadian history. Timeline recap 2018, Meng Wanzhou arrested in Vancouver. Days later, China detains 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, on espionage charges. 2019 to 2021, international outrage grows. 2024, Canada imposes 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. 2025, China retaliates with tariffs on Canadian agriculture. And now, in the middle of that trade war, 4 Canadian lives are lost in a Chinese prison. Diplomatically, this is a massive blow, not just to relations, but to any remaining trust between the 2 governments. Quote from Peter Humphrey: "This is a strong signal that China has no intention of patching things up with Canada. To some, this was about the rule of law. To others, it was a ruthless message: play by our rules or pay the price." Unsurprisingly, the world is reacting with a mix of anger, disbelief, and growing fear. 4 executions, no public transparency, and a Canadian government that could only watch from the sidelines. Human rights organizations like Amnesty International have slammed the executions as a wake-up call. According to their Secretary General, this marks a dangerous precedent where even citizens of Western democracies may face death sentences abroad without proper recourse or international protections. Cut to Amnesty press release or a spokesperson statement. In their words, these shocking and inhumane executions of Canadian citizens by Chinese authorities should not only alarm Canada, but every nation whose citizens travel, work, or do business in China. Global reaction so far. Canada. Outrage from both the government and the public. Vigils held in Vancouver, Montreal, and Ottawa. Opposition leaders in Parliament demanding stronger action. This is an affront to Canadian values, said one MP. We must reassess our relationship with Beijing immediately. United States. The U.S. State Department has issued a cautious but firm statement. Washington is reportedly in talks with Ottawa about potential coordinated measures. Behind closed doors, there's growing concern over the safety of American citizens facing legal issues in China. Australia, the UK, and EU nations are monitoring the situation closely. Several EU MPs have called for a review of judicial cooperation agreements with China. The global media says the story is dominating international headlines. From The Guardian to the New York Times to Al Jazeera, editorial pieces are questioning whether China is now using capital punishment as a tool of diplomacy or, worse, intimidation. But not everyone sees this as an abuse of power. Some voices, especially within parts of the global south, frame it differently. They argue this is simply China enforcing its laws the way any sovereign nation would. To them, drug offenses are serious crimes, and Western outrage is hypocritical. Still, others warn of something more sinister, legal warfare. The use of law and punishment not just for justice, but as leverage. A chilling thought, especially for the families of Canadians still living or working in China. Because for them, the fear is real, and it's growing. Now comes the hardest question of all. What does Canada do next? Words of condemnation can only go so far. The real challenge is whether Ottawa will take meaningful action, diplomatically, economically, or politically. Here are the most likely scenarios. Sanctions on Chinese officials or state entities. Canada may impose targeted sanctions, travel bans, asset freezes on judges, prosecutors, or agencies involved in the executions. But will they risk retaliation from Beijing? Trade countermeasures. Canada could escalate its already simmering trade war by banning more Chinese imports or subsidizing domestic alternatives. But this could hurt Canadian industries too, especially those still dependent on Chinese supply chains. Diplomatic expulsions. Ottawa may expel Chinese diplomats, citing a breakdown of trust. In return, Canada would likely see its own officials removed from Beijing. Travel warnings and evacuations. Canada may issue high-risk travel advisories or even begin coordinating the exit of citizens working in China, especially those with dual citizenship. Legal protections and policy reform. This crisis could prompt new legislation in Canada to create stronger protections for citizens detained abroad or to tighten security cooperation with allies in the Indo-Pacific region. But beyond these moves, there's a deeper shift underway. This tragedy might permanently reshape Canada's foreign policy. We may be witnessing the final unraveling of Canada's decades-long attempt to balance diplomacy with China's authoritarian rise. It may also push Canada to more fully align with U.S.-led strategies to counter Beijing's influence, militarily, economically, and politically. Or, if Canada hesitates, it risks sending a signal to the world that even the execution of its own citizens isn't enough to push back. That's a message no democratic government wants to send. A warning to the West. This moment is bigger than 4 tragic executions. It's a warning, a line drawn in the sand. If you're a dual citizen, your passport may not protect you. If you're a government, diplomacy may no longer be enough. And if you're watching from the West, it's time to rethink how safe your citizens really are in an increasingly authoritarian world. So what do you think? Was this China upholding the law or crossing a line that should never be crossed? Let's talk about it in the comments below. If you're finding this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and lets us keep reporting the stories that matter. This is Empire and Influence, where we connect the dots behind today's biggest power plays. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next video.